Hello everyone, it's been a few days since we last caught up. Even though not many folks are reading these days, I've really been missing you all. Hopefully, things will start picking up again soon. Enough chit-chat, let's dive right in. Our first story this time comes from a reader named Mai Mai. It happened when he was a kid. Back then, Mai Mai was studying in the city, and his parents worked there too. Their old village was about 15 kilometers away. Usually, the family didn't go back very often, only for major festivals or during the busy farming season. One Lunar New Year though, Mama and his parents did head home to celebrate with the rest of the clan. Kids these days have all sorts of toys, but in those days it was different. Mama and the other kids, his age, would just roam around the hills and fields, playing to their heart's content. In Mama's memory, they ended up at the doorstep of a small house built right in the middle of a field. There wasn't another building anywhere nearby. The leader of the group was a boy named Xiao Qing. Without hesitation, Xiao Qing pushed open the door and walked straight in, and the rest of them followed. Once inside, Mai Mai saw 3 huge golden Buddha statues, each draped with a red cloth over its shoulders. Beneath the altar stood a donation box, and in front of it were 3 little prayer mats. Mai Mai had never seen anything like it before, except maybe on TV. The sheer size and solemn presence of the Buddhas made him feel a bit uneasy. Xiao Qing explained that some mysterious master from far away had come here and erected these statues to bless their village with good weather, bountiful harvest, and peace. Then he picked up a scrap of paper from the floor and told Mai Mai to stick it onto one of the Buddhas. If he did, their family's crops would surely thrive next year. Mai Mai can't even remember what color the paper was, but he was so scared he couldn't bring himself to do it. Seeing his hesitation, Xiao Qing teased him mercilessly. "You're such a wimp, just like a little girl." With that, he turned toward the Buddha facing the door, knelt down, and began banging his forehead against the floor. "Blessed one," he cried out, "we've run out of money to buy firecrackers. Could you lend us a little?" After he finished speaking, Xiao Qing went straight for the donation box in front of the Buddha statues. With all the kids watching, he flipped it over and started shaking it, trying to get the incense money people had donated to fall out. Sure enough, after some banging and prying, Xiao Qing managed to fish out a pile of coins and small bills. The biggest bill was only 1 yuan, but most were dimes and half-yuan coins, maybe about 10 yuan in total. Back then, that was a solid sum. In their village shop, a spicy snack cost just 1 dime each. Xiao Qing, not missing a beat, knelt and bowed a few more times to the Buddha, then jumped up and waved the money in front of Mai Mai. "You can't tell anyone about this, or we'll beat you up," he threatened. Mai Mai only barely knew these kids and wasn't sure if the threat was a joke or not, so he quickly nodded, promising to keep quiet. But Xiao Qing still wasn't satisfied. He pointed at the scrap of paper on the floor and told Mai Mai to stick it onto one of the Buddha statues. "Once you do that, you're one of us. Not only won't we mess with you, we'll use this donation box money to buy snacks and firecrackers. And you'll get your share too." Mai Mai said that, not wanting to make enemies with this group of kids. And honestly, tempted by the promise of snacks and firecrackers, he picked up a piece of paper from the floor and stuck it onto the Buddha statue. Then they all left the little house, just as it was time for dinner. Later that evening, they'd all agreed to meet up at the village corner shop. When Mei Mei arrived, the other kids were already there, and Xiao Qing was busy picking out things to buy. Spicy snacks, candies, firecrackers, and even some saccharin and vinegar, which Mei Mei later realized were for making homemade drinks. With their haul in hand, the kids made their way to a small grove just outside the village. Next to the grove was a river, frozen solid in the winter cold, so solid that even adults could walk right on the ice. When it came time to share the loot, Xiao Qing handed Mai Mai only a few firecrackers. "No snacks, no homemade drinks, you just joined us," Xiao Qing said. "So you only get firecrackers." Honestly, Mei Mei didn't mind. Having grown up in the county town, he'd already tried all sorts of snacks and drinks, so he wasn't jealous at all. In fact, being handed firecrackers was a thrill. His parents always thought they were too dangerous and never let him have any, like any group of kids with firecrackers. They quickly ran into the usual problem. Some of them just wouldn't go off. These weren't duds. The fuses would burn about halfway and then stop, leaving the firecracker unexploded. The kids started collecting the ones that didn't go off, planning to open them up later for the gunpowder. There were 5 kids there, including Mai Mai, and they spent a good 10 minutes peeling open the stubborn firecrackers. Once they'd gathered all the powder, someone produced a small round cylinder made of clay. No one quite remembers where it came from. They stuffed all the powder inside, stuck a fuse in, and set it alight. As soon as the fuse caught, the whole group scattered in every direction. They waited a while, but nothing happened. The homemade firework just sat there, silent. Mai Mai happened to be standing closest, so he went over to check it out. He noticed that the fuse had fizzled out right where it entered the clay cylinder. Now, Mai Mai was holding a stick of incense, a thin, smoldering stick used in Chinese folk rituals. Kind of like a very long, slender cigarette. The kids had been using incense to light the firecrackers. So Mai Mai leaned in and tried to use the incense to relight the fuse, but no matter what he did, it just wouldn't catch. Getting a little impatient, he leaned in even closer in that split second. The fuse finally lit, and because it was so short, the powder inside the cylinder exploded right away. The blast shot out straight into Mai Mai's left thumb. For context, Mai Mai is a true lefty. He always used his left hand for everything. His right hand was just there for balance. The pain was instant and intense. He nearly burst into tears. He remembers looking down and seeing his entire thumb turn white from the burn. The other kids rushed over to check on him. Xiao Qing, ever the ringleader, waved it off, saying he'd been burned by fireworks before, and that all Mai Mai needed was some ice. He grabbed a brick, smashed a hunk of ice from the frozen river, and handed it to Mai Mai to press against his thumb. After that, the whole gang escorted Mai Mai home. When they got there, only his grandmother was in. The kids explained what had happened, but his grandma didn't make a fuss. Boys will be boys, after all. And getting into a little trouble was nothing new. She didn't even mention it to Mai Mai's parents. Let's continue. Usually, whenever Mai Mai went back to his hometown, he slept together with his parents. One morning, before he had even woken up, his parents got up and noticed that something smelled bad. They started looking for the source of the smell, and eventually found that it was coming from his thumb. After discovering it, his parents asked him how it had happened. He didn't hide anything and told them everything exactly as it was. He said that he had been burned by firecrackers some days earlier. At that time, it was during the Spring Festival, the biggest holiday in China, so his parents didn't blame him too much. They took him to a village doctor who disinfected the wound and applied some medicine, and then they came back home. However, his hand did not get better. Instead, it became more and more serious before the 15th day of the first lunar month had even arrived. His thumb had already rotted to the point where a bit of the bone inside could be seen. Seeing his hand in this condition, his family asked him which children had been playing with him that day. They planned to go and ask them to see whether he had lied. After Mai Mai told them, the family members went separately to those children's homes to ask about it. But the answers they got were all the same, that they had all been burned by firecrackers that night. After asking around and confirming the situation, Mai Mai's parents determined that he had not lied. And then they returned home, but not long after Mai Mai's parents came home, the parents of those other kids showed up at their door, one after another. It turned out that after Mai Mai's family left, they had gone back and pressed their own children for the truth about what happened that night. That's when they finally learned what the kids had really been up to inside that little building, the one with the giant Buddha statues. When Mai Mai's father heard this, he was furious and wanted to discipline his son right then and there, but the other parents stopped him. That night, the families gathered and talked things over until late. In the end, they agreed. The next day, all the kids would go together to the little shrine to apologize for what they'd done. But when the morning came, only Mai Mai's family showed up. They waited until 10 a.m., but none of the other families arrived. So Mai Mai's parents decided not to wait any longer. They went inside to make amends on their own. Mai Mai was told to peel off the paper he'd stuck on the Buddha statue, then sweep the floor of the shrine. His father stuffed 100 yuan into the donation box. The whole family knelt, bowed, cleaned, and apologized, and didn't leave until noon. During all this, the other families never appeared. When they got back to the village, they finally learned why. Of the other 4 kids, Xiao Qing and another child had run away from home in the middle of the night. One of the remaining 2 drank pesticide while his parents were sleeping. By morning, he was already gone. The last boy's father, known for his violent temper, had beaten him so badly with a herding whip that the child's hand was broken. Mai Mai didn't stay in the village much longer. He soon returned to the city. Later, doctors in the city said his finger was just a simple burn that would heal with time. Oddly enough, it took half a year for his rotted finger to get back to normal. During those months, he taught himself to use his right hand for everything: eating, writing, carrying things. In a way, that was a blessing in disguise. But as for Xiao Qing and the other runaway, their story was much darker. For years, their parents searched desperately, but the children were never found. It wasn't until the start of 2020, during a period of strict ID checks in China, that the 2 were discovered at a brick factory about 40 kilometers from the village. They'd been put to work tending the kiln. By then, Xiaoqing had lost a hand, and his mind was unstable, sometimes lucid, sometimes confused. The other boy, after God knows what kind of suffering, had become completely unresponsive. The factory boss claimed he'd taken them in after finding them wandering the streets, already in this condition. They couldn't do much real work, just watch the gate and ate from the communal pot. My Mei saw them again in the village after that, but they no longer recognized him. As for that little shrine, it's gone now, bulldozed to make way for a livestock farm. The old temple and the secrets it held have disappeared from the village for good. Our next story comes from an online friend who goes by the name Xing Chen. But for this tale, let's call him Xiaoxing. Last year, Xiaoxing's company decided to expand. Their old office just wasn't big enough anymore, so the bosses said they'd be renting a new space. Once they found it, Xiaoxing's whole team would need to move. The only problem, the new location was really far from his apartment, over an hour and a half each way by public transit, with no direct line. But, as fate would have it, the new office was pretty close to his family's old house. Just 2 bus stops away, that house had been rented out for over 30 years to an old man. But a few months back, the old tenant passed away inside the house. Since then, no one had lived there, and Xiaoxing was a bit uneasy about moving in, knowing someone had died there. So at first, he avoided it. After 2 or 3 months, things changed. As long as he wasn't working overtime, the long commute was tolerable. But then his team was assigned to a new project, and suddenly he was working late every night, sometimes until 10 or 11. By the time he finished, public transit had already stopped running, so he'd have to call a cab to get home. No matter what, he wouldn't get home until after midnight, sometimes as late as 1 a.m. After showering and getting ready for bed, he'd barely get any sleep before having to get up again at 6 or 6:30. Most mornings, he didn't even have time for breakfast before rushing out to catch the bus. The constant overtime started to wear him down. He was always exhausted, his eyelids drooping, dark circles under his eyes. Seeing how rundown he looked, Xiaoxing's dad finally intervened. He told Xiaoxing to just move into the family's old house. If he was worried about the place because of what had happened, they could bring in someone knowledgeable in these things to check it out first. Xiaoxing agreed. After all, these overtime stretches could last a whole month, not just a day or 2. And the exhaustion was getting to him, reluctantly. He decided to give the old house a try. About 2 days later, his dad gave the go-ahead. They even brought in a fortune reader and a Taoist priest. The priest declared the house perfectly clean and safe to live in. After Xiaoxing moved back, he didn't feel anything out of the ordinary, just like any other place he'd ever called home. Having grown up in this old house, it still felt comforting to him. As soon as he settled in, his spirits lifted right away. Later, once their overtime project wrapped up, the department head suggested everyone grab a meal together to unwind after a month of hard work. That evening, at the get-together, Xiaoxing ended up drinking a bit too much. Back home, he quickly washed up and climbed into bed. Soon enough, he began to dream. Xiaoxing usually doesn't realize he's dreaming, but this time it was different. He knew full well he was in a dream. In it, he found himself lying on the bed in that very house, unable to move a muscle. His eyes drifted down along his arm and saw that he was hooked up to an IV drip. Then, the bedroom door creaked open, and in stepped a plump, middle-aged woman. She said, "It's time for old master to take his medicine." After that, everything went black. The next morning, Xiaoxing woke up feeling awful. His stomach was churning, and he couldn't shake off the lingering discomfort. As he washed up, he kept thinking about the strange dream he'd had the night before. Why on earth would he dream of being an old man? The more he thought about it, the less sense it made. He wasn't an expert in these things, and he'd never paid much attention to them before. So, after a whole day of puzzling over it, he still had no answers. About a week later, the strange dream had faded from his mind. That day, the department manager happened to visit for a meeting and invited everyone out for dinner again. Xiaoxing drank just as much as last time, maybe even more. By the end of the night, he could barely walk straight. He made his way back to the old house, feeling sick, and collapsed into bed. Sure enough, the dream returned. This time, he was once again lying in bed, but instead of being fed medicine, he saw himself sitting at the bedside. That same plump woman from before was there, holding a syringe. As she jabbed the needle into his thigh, she spat out, "You stubborn old bastard. Why aren't you dead yet, you old fool?" The pain was startlingly real. He could feel every prick of the needle. No matter how much it hurt, he couldn't scream, couldn't move, couldn't wake up. He was trapped in the dream until his phone alarm finally dragged him out of it at dawn. When Xiaoxing woke up, he was drenched in cold sweat. His pillow and even his back were soaked. despite it being the middle of winter. He lay there for a while, trying to calm down, then hurriedly pulled down his pants to check his leg. On the inside of his thigh, he found a cluster of small red marks, just where the woman had stabbed him in the dream. After that, Xiaoxing started to get nervous about drinking. Who wouldn't be? Every time he drank, he'd have the same terrifying dream. Unable to escape, with that plump woman stabbing him over and over again. During this time, Xiaoxing stayed away from alcohol, but with the Spring Festival just 2 weeks away, it was impossible to avoid drinking for long company, New Year's parties, department dinners, and endless runs of bosses treating everyone. In a Chinese workplace, especially if you're known to hold your liquor, suddenly refusing a drink is almost unthinkable. Once you raise your glass, you're expected to keep going. The annual company party wasn't too bad, since it wasn't held near his branch. After drinking, Xiaoxing didn't go back to the old house. In fact, over the next few gatherings, he managed to avoid staying there, and the nightmares didn't come back. But on the day before the Spring Festival break, the manager in charge of Xiaoxing's department showed up again, determined to have one last get-together before the holiday. This time, he brought hongbao, red envelopes, a traditional Chinese custom where elders give children money wrapped in red paper for good luck. Nowadays, it's also become a way to give out bonuses or show appreciation. That night at dinner, Xiaoxing decided he was going to go all-in drink as much as possible, until he couldn't walk. Hoping that if he got drunk enough, he'd just pass out and wouldn't dream at all. He mixed baijiu and beer, glass after glass, barely holding it together. He threw up 3 or 4 times before the night was over, even though he was still uneasy about sleeping in that old house. He was so exhausted and sick that he collapsed into bed without thinking much about it. Sure enough, that night, Xiaoxing had another dream. This time, he saw a woman dressed all in black handing money to the same plump woman from his previous nightmares. The woman in black thanked her, and the plump woman grinned and assured her, "Don't worry, I've got plenty of experience. I'll take good care of the old man." But as soon as the woman in black left, the plump woman's smile vanished. She started cursing under her breath. "Why isn't this old bastard dead yet? Damn it, once he's gone, I can find another job." As she muttered, she jabbed Xiaoxing again and again with her needle. This time though, Xiaoxing jolted awake. He was so shaken that he couldn't stay in the house another minute. In the middle of the night, he packed his things and left for his new rental apartment. Spring Festival came and went, and Xiaoxing never told his family about what happened. After the holiday, he figured it was time to just rent a place closer to work. After all, with all the overtime and late night taxi rides, he was spending almost 1,000 yuan a month just on getting home. Why not just use that money to rent a small apartment within walking distance of the office? The new place was perfect, so close he could sleep until 8 点 and still stroll to work by 8点30分. But on move-in day, Xiaoxing ran into someone he recognized right away. The plump woman from his dreams. She was just as she'd appeared before, smiling at everyone, chatting like she knew the whole building. As he was heading out for dinner, he saw her walking toward the building and instantly remembered his nightmares. He decided to keep an eye on her and maybe figure out which apartment she lived in. As he hesitated, she disappeared upstairs. Luckily, there was a convenience store right by the entrance, run by a man who also lived in the building. Xiaoxing bought a pack of cigarettes and casually asked about her. To his surprise, the store owner was happy to share. She was a live-in caretaker, working as a private nurse for an old lady upstairs. The woman she cared for was paralyzed and not quite in her right mind, and she lived on the floor right above Xiaoxing's new apartment. Hearing this, Xiaoxing finally started to put all the pieces together. Hearing about the plump woman's real-life occupation and connecting it to his own dream, he began to suspect that the old man who'd rented his place might very well have been abused to death by her. From that day on, Xiaoxing kept an eye out, hoping to run into the elderly lady's family members in the building. One night, while taking a break from work, he was gaming at home when hunger struck. He headed downstairs to the convenience store for a snack. As soon as he stepped out of the elevator, he heard the security guard shouting, "So-and-so is here again to visit your grandmother." No sooner had the words left the guard's mouth than a man walked in from the lobby, heading straight for the elevators. Xiaoxing was still inside the car, holding down the door open button and waiting for him. Once the man got in, he even thanked Xiaoxing. Since the old lady lived right above Xiaoxing, the man pressed the button for that floor. Xiaoxing figured this must be one of her relatives, so he asked, "Hey bro, you here to see your grandma?" The man glanced up, nodded without saying a word, and went back to scrolling through his phone in the corner of the elevator, clearly not in the mood to chat. Seeing his attitude, Xiaoxing almost changed his mind. But deep down, he knew he couldn't keep quiet. His conscience wouldn't let him. Summoning his courage, he blurted out the whole story. after he'd rented out his apartment. The old man's kids hired that hefty woman to look after him. Not long after, the old guy passed away. Upon hearing this, the man dropped his phone and snapped. "What do you mean by that?" Xiaoxing, sensing how uneasy the other guy felt, decided not to press further. Instead, he just said, "You can never really know what's in someone's heart. If you believe me, keep an eye on your grandma. If not, forget it." About a week later, someone knocked on Xiaoxing's door late at night. It was the same man from the elevator. He'd come to thank Xiaoxing. He explained that, after their conversation, he'd grown suspicious. When he got home, he sent the plump caretaker out to buy cigarettes, then quickly checked the old lady. Sure enough, he found a patch of red marks, tiny needle pricks on her inner thigh. He didn't have hard evidence, so he called in a favor from a friend and had a security guard help him install a hidden camera in the apartment. Telling the caretaker it was just for the Wi-Fi, it didn't take long. The very next day, the camera captured the caretaker abusing the old lady. The man was furious. He locked the woman in the room, demanded her wages back, then called the police, who took her away. After investigating, the police found out that she specialized in caring for paralyzed, nonverbal seniors, and that quite a few elders had died under her care. Why would someone do such a thing? In that area, there's a custom. If a caretaker is looking after an elderly person who passes away, the family has to pay her full wages for the month, plus a big red envelope to ward off bad luck. Sometimes 1,000 or 2, sometimes just a few hundred. It isn't a fortune, but for some, it's enough to breed real evil. After it was all over, Xiaoxing bought 2 sheets of incense paper and went to his family's old house to burn them in memory of the old tenant. When he got home, he collapsed on the couch and dozed off. In his dream, a row of shadowy figures appeared before him, at least 10, all with the stooped silhouettes of elderly men and women. They didn't speak, just bowed deeply to Xiaoxing. In his mind, he heard a chorus of thank yous. Then the shadows turned and quietly left. After that, Xiaoxing sometimes dared to stay at the old house again, even after drinking. He slept soundly, no more nightmares, just peaceful nights until morning. And that's the end of today's story. Until next time.